A human arrives. Nestled in the heart of the Zeta Orionis system, the Galactic Institute of Higher Learning gleamed like a beacon of knowledge against the star-speckled void. Its spires, constructed from materials harvested from a dozen worlds, housed the greatest minds from over 100 different species. In his crystalline office, Professor Zyloth Xander, a towering Alphean with 4 arms and eyes that shimmered like nebulae, studied the latest equations for the quantum gravity paradox. The elusive problem had confounded the galaxy's top physicists for a millennium: how to unify the mathematics of quantum theory and gravity, the very big and the very small, into an elegant unified model had been the focus of the professor's storied career. A chime from his holoprojector interrupted Zyloth's musings. The translucent figure of Dean Vortex, a Ceph with an impressive cranial crest, coalesced before him. "Professor, I hope I'm not disturbing you, but there's an urgent matter that requires your attention." Zyloth set down his holopen. "Of course, Dean. What seems to be the issue?" The Dean's scales shimmered with apprehension. "It's about the incoming class of students. We've accepted a human." "A human? Here?" Zyloth tilted his head, intrigued. "I was under the impression their species had only recently achieved interstellar travel." "Indeed," Vortex said, "but this particular human, a Jace Novak, has apparently demonstrated remarkable aptitude in his application exams. His scores in theoretical physics and mathematical reasoning were off the charts." Zyloth stroked his chin with one of his 4 hands. "Fascinating. Their species evolved in a high-gravity crucible. That kind of environment often breeds resilience and innovative thinking." "That may be," the Dean said, his tone cautious, "but there are concerns. Humans are notoriously unpredictable. Their homeworld has a reputation for chaos and conflict. All the more reason to welcome them into the fold of civilized academia," Zyloth countered. "Knowledge and understanding are the keys to fostering peace. When does this Jace Novak arrive?" "His ship is docking as we speak," Vortex said. "I trust you'll help ensure his smooth integration into our student body." Zyloth nodded. "It would be my honor. A fresh perspective, no matter how alien, may be exactly what we need to crack the paradox." As the Dean's image faded, Zyloth gazed out his window at the Institute's bustling landing pads. A small, unassuming craft had just touched down, bearing the emblem of Earth, a blue marble bisected by simple geometric shapes. The first human student had arrived. Jace Novak stepped out of the airlock, his heart pounding beneath his pressure suit. The Institute's hangar was a cavernous space filled with vessels of every shape and size. Some were sleek and streamlined. Others resembled Baroque sculptures. Jace felt his ship, a modular SL-42 shuttle, was downright primitive by comparison. He took a deep breath, savoring the alien atmosphere. It was thinner than Earth's, but richer in oxygen. The gravity, a comfortable 0.8 g, made him feel lighter on his feet. Jace had trained extensively for this, subjecting himself to punishing forces and studying until his eyes blurred. Now standing on an alien world, about to embark on the most prestigious education the galaxy had to offer, it all felt surreal. A tall, spindly being approached Jace, moving with a fluid grace that seemed to defy its angular frame. "Welcome, Jace Novak of Earth," it said, its voice a melodic warble. "I am Thrazix, your student liaison. We are honored to have you join us." Jace tried to decode Thrazix's expression, but the alien's crystalline features were inscrutable. He defaulted to a human smile and extended his hand. Thrazix regarded the appendage with curiosity before enveloping it with 2 of its own slender digits. "The honor is mine," Jace said. "I still can't believe I'm here. The Galactic Institute has been a dream of mine since I first learned of its existence." "Your species' rapid advancement is most impressive," Thrazix said as it led Jace out of the hangar. "To have gone from primitive chemical rockets to traversing the stars in a mere century. Unheard of." Jace shrugged. "When we put our minds to something, we can be pretty stubborn, or determined, as we like to say." A useful trait in academia, Phrasex mused. Though I should warn you, the coursework here is unlike anything you've experienced before. You will be challenged in ways both intellectual and physical. Jace's pulse quickened at the prospect. I wouldn't have it any other way. As they walked the Institute's halls, passing students of every hue and configuration, Jace couldn't help but feel a thrill of excitement. The diversity was staggering. Beams that shone like stars, others that rippled like liquid metal. Some communicated in ultrasonic chirps, others in shimmering bioluminescent patterns. And yet, beneath the alien trappings, Jace sensed a shared passion for knowledge, a hunger to unravel the universe's deepest mysteries. Phrasex led Jace to a large amphitheater where hundreds of students were already gathered. At the center podium stood Professor Zyloth, his forearms clasped behind his back. The Alphian's presence commanded the room, his nebula eyes sweeping over the assembled crowd. Welcome, esteemed students, Zyloth began, his voice resonating through the hall. You represent the brightest minds from across the galaxy. Over the next several cycles, you will plumb the depths of the cosmos, unravel the intricacies of matter and energy, and if you are diligent and fortunate, perhaps add to the sum total of galactic knowledge. Jace felt a shiver run down his spine. This was what he'd been striving for, why he'd pushed himself to the brink of human endurance. To be a part of something greater, to contribute to the collective understanding of the universe. Now, before we embark on this grand adventure, Zyloth continued, I must address the photon in the room, as the saying goes. His eyes settled on Jace, and the human felt the weight of 1,000 alien gazes. We have among us, for the first time in the Institute's long history, a human, a member of a species known for its tenacity, its adaptability, and some might say, its recklessness. A murmur rippled through the crowd, a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Zyloth raised a hand for silence. But let us not prejudge. Every species, no matter how young or brash, has something to teach us, something to contribute to the grand tapestry of knowledge. So let us welcome Jace Novik and see what insights his unique perspective may yield. As the amphitheater erupted into a cacophony of applause, trills, and bioluminescent flashes, Jace felt a swell of pride. He met Zyloth's gaze and nodded, a silent promise to prove himself worthy of this opportunity. The challenge had been issued, the gauntlet thrown down. In the heart of an alien institute, a lone human would strive to make his mark, to show that even a Deathworlder could unravel the secrets of the stars. Clashing minds. Jace's first week at the Galactic Institute was a whirlwind of adaptation and discovery. The coursework was indeed unlike anything he'd encountered on Earth. Quantum mechanics, hyperspace navigation, xenobiology. The subjects were as diverse as they were challenging. But Jace relished the intellectual rigor, the chance to push his mind to its limits. In the lecture halls, Jace found himself surrounded by alien minds that approached problems from angles he'd never considered. The Zethians, with their mastery of 11-dimensional mathematics, could visualize complex equations as intuitively as humans could grasp basic arithmetic. The Cornians, whose bodies were composed of exotic matter, had an innate understanding of the universe's fundamental forces. Yet for all the brilliance around him, Jace couldn't shake the feeling that he was being underestimated. In Professor Zyloth's advanced physics seminar, the Alphian's nebula eyes often passed over Jace as if he were a mere curiosity, a primitive interloper in the realm of higher learning. It was in this class that Jace first butted heads with Krillix, a Zethian student with a reputation for arrogance and a keen intellect to match. Krillix's silvery skin and lithe frame made him look like a living sculpture, but his words cut like razors. I fail to see, Krillix said, his voice dripping with condescension, how a species that still relies on chemical propulsion can hope to grasp the intricacies of quantum gravity. It's like expecting a paramecium to comprehend calculus. Jace bristled at the insult, but kept his tone even. Sometimes an outside perspective is exactly what's needed to solve an intractable problem. Fresh eyes, unbound by entrenched assumptions, can spot the gaps in long-held theories. Professor Zylot's eyebrows rose, intrigued by the human's retort. An interesting notion. Jace Novak. Care to elaborate? All eyes in the lecture hall turned to Jace. He swallowed, suddenly feeling the weight of his words. Well, take the quantum gravity paradox, he began, calling up the holographic equations with a flick of his wrist. We've been treating gravity and quantum mechanics as separate entities, trying to force them together like mismatched puzzle pieces. But what if we're approaching it wrong? What if gravity is just another manifestation of the quantum foam, a macroscopic emergent property of microscopic fluctuations? A hush fell over the room. Professor Zylot leaned forward, his nebula eyes blazing with intensity. Go on, he urged. Jace's mind raced, the pieces falling into place with crystalline clarity. If we model spacetime as a quantum-entangled network, a web of Planck-scale nodes connected by Einstein-Rosen bridges, then gravity could arise as a kind of tensor flow between these nodes. The curvature of spacetime, the dance of planets and stars, all emergent from the quantum tango of the very small. The lecture hall erupted into a cacophony of excited chatter and flashing holo-displays as students and professor alike raced to test Jace's hypothesis. Krillix looked stunned, his silver skin flushing with an alien emotion Jace couldn't quite place. Professor Zylot quieted the room with a raised hand, his eyes never leaving Jace. A bold conjecture, Mr. Novak. One that will require rigorous mathematical formulation and experimental validation. But if it holds true, it could be the key to unlocking the paradox. Jace felt a flush of pride, tempered by the realization of the task ahead. He had thrown down the intellectual gauntlet, and now he would have to back up his words with hard science. As the class dispersed, Krillix approached Jace, his silver eyes narrowed. Don't think this changes anything, human. A moment of inspiration does not equate to true understanding. You'll need more than clever metaphors to keep pace with Zethian minds. Jace met Krillix's gaze unflinchingly. I'm not here to compete, Krillix. I'm here to learn, to contribute, to push the boundaries of what's possible. And if that means challenging long-held assumptions, then so be it. Krillix scoffed and turned away, his lithe form disappearing into the throng of students. But Jace could sense a grudging respect beneath the Zethian's dismissive veneer. He had proven himself a worthy intellectual adversary, a Deathworlder with a mind to match his tenacity. As Jace made his way back to his quarters, his head spinning with equations and possibilities, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The quantum gravity paradox was a puzzle that had stymied the galaxy's greatest minds for centuries, and he had just proposed a radical new approach. The path ahead would be fraught with challenges, both intellectual and interpersonal, but Jace was determined to see it through. For in the depths of his human heart, forged in the crucible of a high-gravity world, Jace knew that he had something unique to offer the galaxy. A resilience, an adaptability, a stubborn refusal to accept the impossible. And if he could harness those qualities, channel them into the pursuit of knowledge, then perhaps he could make a difference. Perhaps a Deathworlder could solve the unsolvable, and in doing so, change the galaxy forever. Breakthrough under pressure. The Galactic Institute's gravity lab was a marvel of engineering, a cavernous space where students could manipulate the fundamental force that shaped the universe. It was here that Jace found himself, weeks into his studies, working alongside Krillix on a practical application of his quantum gravity hypothesis. The two had formed an uneasy truce, their initial animosity giving way to a grudging respect for each other's intellect. Krillix's mastery of advanced mathematics complemented Jace's intuitive grasp of physical principles, and together they had made significant strides in formalizing Jace's conjectures. But the real test would come in the gravity lab, where they would attempt to create a microscopic black hole, a singularity so small and fleeting that it would evaporate in a burst of Hawking radiation. If they could measure the quantum fluctuations of this event, it would provide crucial data to support Jace's theory. Professor Zyloff oversaw the experiment, his nebula eyes gleaming with anticipation. "Remember," he cautioned, "the energies we're dealing with here are immense. A single miscalculation could have catastrophic consequences." Jace and Krillix nodded, their focus absolute. They had run countless simulations, checked and rechecked their equations, but the real thing was always a leap into the unknown. As they initiated the experiment, the gravity lab thrummed with power. Jace could feel the hair on his arms standing on end, a primal human response to the forces at play. Krillix's silver skin shimmered with a strange iridescence, as if reflecting the warping of space-time itself. And then, in a blinding flash of light and a roar of distorted space, something went wrong. Alarms blared and containment fields shuddered as the microscopic black hole, instead of evaporating as predicted, began to grow. "Abort the experiment," Professor Zoloff shouted, his voice barely audible over the din. "Jace, Krillix, get out of there." But it was too late. The singularity, now the size of a marble, had created a gravitational vortex that pulled everything towards its insatiable maw. Jace and Krillix, caught in the maelstrom, were dragged inexorably towards the event horizon. In that moment, faced with the unimaginable, Jace felt a strange calm descend over him. The world seemed to slow, his human perceptions stretching to encompass the totality of the crisis. He looked at Krillix, saw the fear in the Zethian's silver eyes, and knew what he had to do. With a surge of strength born of desperation, Jace lunged for the emergency containment switch. His human muscles, forged in Earth's unforgiving gravity, propelled him forward even as the singularity sought to drag him back. Krillix, catching on to Jace's plan, used his Zethian agility to dart towards the power conduits, ready to sever the flow of energy to the experiment. In a heartbeat that stretched for an eternity, Jace's hand closed around the switch. He pulled with all his might, feeling the tendons in his arms screaming with the effort. At the same instant, Krillix's silvery form danced through the crackling energy fields, his lithe fingers tearing at the conduits. And then, with a final heave and a shower of sparks, it was over. The containment fields snapped into place, the singularity collapsing in on itself with a whimper rather than a bang. Jace and Krillix tumbled to the floor, their breaths coming in ragged gasps. Professor Zyloff was at their side in an instant, his nebula eyes wide with concern and awe. "Are you all right? What happened?" Jace, his mind racing with the implications of what they had just experienced, struggled to find the words. "The singularity," he managed, "it didn't behave as predicted. It was like it was feeding on the quantum foam itself, growing stronger with each fluctuation." Krillix, his silver skin still shimmering with residual energy, nodded in agreement. "The human's theory, it's incomplete. There are deeper layers to the quantum gravity connection, things we haven't accounted for." Professor Zyloff helped them to their feet, his expression a mix of worry and excitement. "This changes everything," he said. "If what you're saying is true, then we may be on the cusp of a breakthrough that could rewrite the laws of physics themselves." Jace and Krillix shared a look, a newfound understanding passing between them. They had faced the unimaginable together, had pushed the boundaries of science to the brink of catastrophe. But in that crucible of crisis, they had forged a bond stronger than any alloy, a human tenacity fused with Zethian brilliance. And as they set to work, poring over the data from their near-disastrous experiment, Jace couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the verge of something truly monumental. The quantum gravity paradox, that ancient enigma that had stymied the greatest minds of the galaxy, was beginning to unravel before their eyes. But the path ahead would not be easy. They had glimpsed the true complexity of the problem, the staggering depth of the mysteries yet to be unraveled. It would take more than human grit and alien genius to see this through. It would take a willingness to risk everything, to venture into the unknown with no guarantee of return. For in the heart of a black hole, in the quantum foam that underpinned reality itself, lay answers that could reshape the very fabric of the universe. And Jace, the Deathworlder turned cosmic explorer, would stop at nothing to uncover them, even if it meant staring into the face of oblivion itself. A dangerous gambit. In the aftermath of their gravity lab mishap, Jace and Krillix found themselves the center of attention at the Galactic Institute. Word of their brush with a runaway singularity had spread like wildfire, and suddenly the human and Zethian were the talk of the cosmic campus. Professor Xyloth, rather than admonishing them for their recklessness, seemed energized by the potential breakthrough. "What you've stumbled upon," he told them, his nebula eyes ablaze with excitement, "could be the key to unlocking the secrets of the universe. But to confirm your hypothesis, we'll need to take drastic steps." Jace and Krillix exchanged a glance, the memory of their near catastrophe still fresh. "What did you have in mind, Professor?" Jace asked, his human curiosity tempered by a newfound respect for the dangers of pushing too far, too fast. Xyloth brought up a holographic display, the ghostly image of a massive black hole rotating slowly in the air. "This," he said, "is Gargantua, a supermassive black hole at the center of a nearby galaxy. If your theory is correct, the quantum fluctuations at its event horizon should provide definitive proof of the quantum gravity connection." Krillix's silver skin shimmered with apprehension. "You're suggesting we send a probe into a black hole? That's never been done before. The tidal forces alone would tear any conventional spacecraft apart." Jace, however, felt a flicker of excitement at the prospect. "What if we designed a probe specifically for this mission? Something that could withstand the immense gravitational stress long enough to gather the data we need." Professor Xyloth nodded, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "I had a feeling you might say that, Jace, and as it happens, I've been working on just such a design." The hologram shifted, resolving into a sleek, angular spacecraft bristling with advanced sensors and reinforced with exotic materials. "I call it the Icarus," Xyloth said, "named after a character from human mythology who flew too close to the sun." Jace felt a chill run down his spine. The name seemed all too apropos for a mission that would take them to the very edge of the scientifically possible. But the lure of discovery, of being the first to unravel the deepest mysteries of the cosmos, was too strong to resist. "When do we start?" he asked, his human determination overriding any sense of self-preservation. Professor Xyloth's nebula eyes gleamed with anticipation. "As soon as possible. But first, we'll need to get approval from the Institute's Safety Council. A mission of this magnitude, with the potential risks involved, will require their sign-off." Krillix, ever the voice of caution, interjected. "The Safety Council will never approve this. Sending a manned spacecraft into a black hole. It's unprecedented. The liability alone would be astronomical." Jace, however, was undeterred. "We'll make them understand," he said. "We'll present our case, show them the potential benefits outweigh the risks. This is bigger than any one of us. It's about the advancement of galactic science itself." And so, in a flurry of equations and impassioned arguments, Jace and Krillix set about convincing the Safety Council to greenlight their audacious plan. They met with resistance at every turn, bureaucratic inertia and risk-averse naysayers throwing up roadblocks at every opportunity. But Jace refused to give up. With Professor Xyloth's backing and Krillix's begrudging support, he lobbied and cajoled, making his case to anyone who would listen. He spoke of the potential breakthroughs in quantum gravity, of the advancements in space-time engineering that could follow. He painted a picture of a future where the secrets of the universe were laid bare, where the limits of what was possible were forever expanded. And slowly, grudgingly, the Safety Council began to come around. They set conditions and contingencies, demanded redundant safety systems and failsafes, but in the end, they could not deny the historic nature of the proposed mission. With a final, hard-fought vote, the Icarus mission was approved. Jace and Krillix, the unlikely duo of human and Zethian, would venture forth into the unknown, daring to go where no sentient being had gone before. But even as they celebrated their victory, as the Icarus took shape in the Institute's spaceport, Jace couldn't shake a sense of foreboding. They were about to embark on a journey that would push them to the very limits of their physical and mental endurance, a journey from which they might never return. And yet, as he gazed up at the stars, at the infinite expanse of the cosmos that beckoned, Jace knew he would not, could not, turn back. For he was a Deathworlder, a being forged in the crucible of adversity, and he would not rest until he had unraveled the deepest secrets of the universe. The human solution. The day of the Icarus mission dawned with a sense of heavy anticipation hanging over the Galactic Institute. The spaceport was a hive of activity, technicians and engineers swarming over the sleek black form of the spacecraft, making final preparations for the historic voyage. Jace stood at the base of the Icarus, his human frame dwarfed by the scale of the vessel. He was suited up in a custom-made pressure suit, designed to withstand the immense forces he would experience at the edge of a supermassive black hole. Krillix stood beside him, the Zethian's silver skin shimmering with a nervousness Jace had never seen before. Professor Zoloth approached them, his nebula eyes filled with a mix of pride and concern. "I won't lie to you," he said, "this mission carries more risk than any in the history of the Institute. But I have faith in you both, faith in your abilities, your resilience, and your commitment to the pursuit of knowledge." Jace nodded, swallowing past the lump in his throat. "Thank you, Professor, for everything. We won't let you down." Krillix, in a rare display of camaraderie, placed a slender hand on Jace's shoulder. "The human speaks for both of us. We will venture into the unknown, and we will return with the answers we seek." With a final round of well wishes and tearful embraces from their fellow students, Jace and Krillix boarded the Icarus. The spacecraft, a marvel of advanced engineering, hummed with barely contained power as they strapped into their acceleration couches. And then, with a roar of engines and a blaze of plasma, they were off. The Icarus leaped skyward, punching through the atmosphere of the Institute's planet and out into the star-speckled void of space. For days they traveled, the Icarus eating up the light years with its advanced warp drive. Jace and Krillix took turns at the controls, monitoring the ship's systems and making course corrections as they hurtled towards their rendezvous with destiny. And then, after a journey that felt both eternal and instantaneous, they arrived. Gargantua loomed before them, a monster of warped spacetime, its event horizon a swirling maelstrom of gravitational forces beyond human comprehension. Jace felt his breath catch in his throat as he gazed upon the black hole. It was at once terrifying and beautiful, a cosmic beast that devoured light and time itself, and he was about to fly into its very maw. Initiating final approach, Krillix said, his voice tight with tension. "Engaging quantum fluctuation detectors." The Icarus shuddered as it crossed the threshold of the event horizon, the immense tidal forces grabbing at its hull. Jace gritted his teeth as the G-forces built, his human body straining against the crushing weight of gravity. And then, in a blinding flash of Hawking radiation and a scream of overstressed metal, everything went wrong. The Icarus, for all its advanced shielding and reinforced structure, was coming apart at the seams. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks, hull panels buckled and tore, and the bone-jarring vibrations threatened to shake the spacecraft to pieces. "We have to abort," Krillix shouted over the cacophony of alarms. "The ship can't take much more of this." But Jace, through the pain and the pressure, through the fear that threatened to overwhelm him, saw something on his flickering displays. The quantum fluctuation detectors, in the brief moments before their destruction, had captured data that confirmed his wildest theories, that validated the risks they had taken. "No," he roared, his human voice filled with a determination that surprised even him. "We've come too far to turn back now. This is what we came for." With a Herculean effort, Jace hauled himself into the pilot's seat. His hands flew over the controls, rerouting power, diverting resources to the failing shields. The Icarus groaned and protested, but it held together, a testament to Zethian engineering and human grit. And then, with a final, desperate push, they were through. The Icarus burst from the far side of the event horizon, battered and broken but intact. And in its databanks, the secrets of quantum gravity, the keys to unlocking the very fabric of the universe. The journey back to the Institute was a blur of pain and exhaustion, of jury-rigged repairs and anxious communication with the ground. But when they finally touched down, when the Icarus settled onto the spaceport with a hiss of hydraulics and a sigh of relief, Jace knew it had all been worth it. In the days that followed, as he recovered from his injuries and the data from the mission was analyzed, Jace found himself the center of attention once again. But this time, it was not as a curiosity or an underdog, but as a true pioneer of galactic science. Professor Zyloth, poring over the quantum fluctuation readings with an air of reverent fascination, declared the quantum gravity paradox solved. The human intuition, the leap of logic that had led Jace to propose a unified theory of space-time, had been vindicated in the most spectacular fashion imaginable. And as Jace stood before the assembled faculty of the Galactic Institute, accepting their accolades and their apologies for ever doubting him, he felt a sense of accomplishment that went beyond personal pride. He had proven, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that a Deathworlder, a being from a backwater planet on the fringes of the galaxy, could make a difference on the grandest stage imaginable. In the years that followed, as more human students flocked to the Institute and Jace's theories revolutionized the field of cosmology, the galaxy would come to know the true potential of the human spirit. The tenacity, the creativity, the sheer bloody-minded determination to push beyond the boundaries of the possible. And at the center of it all, a humble human from Earth who had dared to dream the impossible dream, and in doing so, had changed the course of galactic history forever. For Jace Novak, the Deathworlder turned cosmic explorer, had proven once and for all that the universe, in all its infinite mystery and majesty, was no match for the power of the human mind.